significant amount of time. I mean, I think about 20 or 30 minutes out there in the woods with her body and with the recycle bin. And this is what's going to ultimately lead to, the evidence scattered about. And then this is where they ultimately will find her body later in the evening when her parents report that she doesn't come home from work.
Right. Yeah, she's left posed, and one of the reasons that I think she was alive when he left the building is that she was given 2 causes of death, either asphyxiation or stabbing. And it's possible for a human to bleed out fairly quickly given the right or wrong circumstances, but asphyxiation of an adult takes several minutes.
Right.
And I just don't think he had time.
She's pretty tiny. He probably could have been strong enough to do it if she was already wounded from the box cutter attack. But if he did strangle her, it definitely took place, I would say, out in the woods.
Yeah, that's what I feel like, is that, and here's the wild speculation part, is that my guess is that he probably thought that she was dead when he wheeled her outside and then got her there and realized, oh, look. Because strangulation, like, if you cut someone's throat, you're not looking at them for the most part. It's from behind. It's not eye to eye, and
you're definitely not touching them.
Exactly. Yeah, not in that sort of way. There's a lot of blood, but it's away from you, and so there's a degree of impersonal approach there. But strangling someone almost always involves facing them, and it involves sustained touch, and that feels sort of the cutting somebody's throat feels cold, and holding them around the neck feels hot.
And you need a certain level of rage combined with passion to be able to strangle someone to death. There's more surveillance video of him re-entering school grounds. And at this point, I believe he's barefoot, and his hands and pants have visible blood on them, for sure. He retrieves his backpack, his gym bag, an extra hoodie, and one of Miss Ritzer's bags, I think, from her classroom. He had stashed a bunch of stuff around, so he's gathering up these things. Then he goes back to the second floor, I think, and goes into the men's bathroom that is right next to the bathroom he committed the murder in. He comes out completely changed, like nothing happened. The other part of this surveillance video that really gets me, I mean, you see him interact with a student here, a student there, a teacher walks by him, nothing seems amiss. But when the other female student enters the bathroom and turns right around and comes back out, and then he comes out, pretty scary.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary, and I'm really glad that she didn't get further into that bathroom. You know what I mean? I just wonder if he would have attacked her as well had she not come right out.
Yeah, it's hard to know. All of this, you talk about the trigger word and all of it, like none of this fits with a, moment of passion.
Right.
Because if somebody really is triggered and acting out of PTSD, which happens, and sometimes dangerously, sometimes violently, but when that happens, they don't clean their tracks like this. They don't, because it takes a while to come down. Anxiety and traumatic memory and that feeling of just the adrenaline of terror, that doesn't just wash off. You
literally crash
it's done.
from
Poof,
it.
I'm fine. Yeah, you go down.
Right.
It takes a while to burn out of your system, and then when it does, you're shaky and you're not thinking real clearly, and you're overwhelmed, and it's just no. It's all no. And so
it is nothing like what we saw on the surveillance video. Nothing like that. You know what I mean?
Is cold.
He's calculated. His movements are calculated and fairly well thought out, if you ask me. Not only that, but he leaves the school. He takes Miss Ritzer's underwear and I believe her wallet and credit cards and ID, things like that. And he walks around the school a little bit more and then he's gone. So he takes off walking. Ultimately, Colleen Ritzer doesn't arrive home after work. So the town of Danvers has 2 missing people that are related but haven't yet been found to be related to each other in any way.
He leaves the school around
about 4.
And it was 9:25 that his parents called and reported him missing. And then it was 9:25, Danvers police sent out a tweet about this kid. And
okay, gotcha.
I remember it coming in. I was working until about 11 that night. And I remember the call coming in to the different emergency rooms because I was working just south off of Route 1, which is where he was found on Route 1. if he had turned, basically turned left and gone south instead of turning right and going north, he could have ended up in the area where I was working. And I was saying before that it's not unusual for kids who are runaways, especially sort of impulsive with he's 14, he's not going to have a car. They're from Tennessee, so he doesn't have local contacts. He doesn't have cash. So it's not unusual for kids in that situation when they're sort of impulsively angry and they run away, then they end up at an emergency room. The hospitals are bigger and brighter and more lit up than police stations. They don't necessarily want to go to the cops anyway. And then they kind of will sometimes pace the parking lot at the ER because they don't want to give up. They don't want to quit and go inside. Right. And so there's a lot. And so we were asked, keep an eye out when you leave work, look around the parking lot, not so much in a endangered way, but just there's a kid missing. Pay attention. So I remember that. I remember looking. I remember listening to the news carefully on the way home for if he'd been found yet. And no, he had not been found. So I was sort of offline, as it were, by 11:15 or so. And it was around 11:20 that Colleen Ritzer was reported missing. So I never put the two together. I never knew that these two people were missing, even much less that they might be related. So Ritzer was reported missing at 11:20, and 3 a.m, her family showed up at the school to start doing what the British call a fingertip search, a by hand, shoulder to shoulder search. She was found very quickly after that. So that's going on at Danvers High School. I don't know how much time it took to put it all together, because before they ever showed up at the school, before they ever found her, at 12:30 in the morning, while they're talking to this kid still and figuring out who he is and what's going on, that's when they find Ritzer. And then it takes them about 4 more hours before Danvers remembers to send out the tweet of, oh yeah, he was found. And it's not just that they forgot, it's that they wanted to confirm his identity, and they also didn't really know how to handle it in terms of PR.
Right. They end up linking the two cases because they search Philip Chism. They find Colleen Ritzer's wallet, and he has her credit cards and her ID, and like I said, her underwear and some other personal effects. So yeah, it did still take a few hours for them to put it all together.
He's found. He's refusing to give his name, but they ask him, can we search your backpack? And he hadn't really expected that question. He didn't object when they started to go through it. And often silence is taken as consent, which is not necessarily accurate, but it's how it was taken. And that's appropriate when you're trying to figure out who is the child that was found at the dark of, if you do a Google Maps, a street view in Topsfield, it is dark, it is desolate, it is residential. And it wasn't very many years before this that they found a toddler at the side of the road up there. So they want to be real careful about identifying children ASAP and that kind of thing. Plus, Chism didn't look 14 when he was 14, like you were saying. He's a big, tall kid, and he's athletic. So they're not even certain they're dealing with a minor right now. And they've got to put it together between this missing child report. And so they open his bag, find his clothing that's all bloody. They find a wallet that is clearly a woman's. So now they're starting to think maybe he's a pickpocket. They're not real sure because the wallet isn't bloody. They don't know what's going on. And they find a box cutter. And they take it out, and they're all gloved, and they're being careful and whatever. They realize the box cutter has blood on it. One of the cops looks at him, and he says, whose blood is this? And his answer is, it's from the girl. And that's pretty much when all of the procedures went into place. Everybody got real careful. Lawyers get called, even if he doesn't ask for one, that kind of thing. Everybody goes into a very different heightened freak out lockdown mode because blood from the girl should not be on a box cutter.
Right, especially in possession of a child who's been reported missing.
He was not a well-behaved defendant. He was tried as an adult. People struggle with that, with him being only 14.
His ultimate sentence, I think, is just, there's certain situations where it doesn't matter how old you are. Once the process has been completed, the sentence is just. It's not always the case, in my opinion, with juveniles who are tried as adults.
Well, in the way our justice system is, if we had a justice system that was a little more invested in, craziness like rehabilitation and therapy and job training and silly things like that, then maybe I would have more of a problem with that kind of sentencing approach. But in this case, if he's tried as an adult and he's going to be placed in an adult institution and then get no treatment on top of already being a really scary kid, I feel like his sentence was exactly what it should have been, and that was 40 years to life.
No guarantee of parole.
that word "to" doesn't mean like you are automatically out in 40 years or even so. He's not going to be out in 20.
He was sentenced for rape, robbery, and murder. He got the 40 years for the rape altogether consecutively. That does keep him behind bars for 40 years. So after 40 years, he'll have to demonstrate to the parole board that he's no longer a threat to society every couple years, according to however the law is in Massachusetts, and they can continue to tell him no for his whole life.
40 years in prison is a long time to live. Prison is a hard life.
He'll be 54 years old.
But he'll be like 84 in human years. Do you know what I mean? Like it just wears on you, and it's heavy and it's hard. And so, we'll see. But that, I feel like based on how the criminal justice system is right now, let's not pretend we're going to rehabilitate this guy, because we're not. We don't.
Let's not even pretend like everyone can be rehabilitated.
100%.
Some people don't want to. If
Absolutely.
you actively don't want to, it's never going to work.
We know that he doesn't want to.
No, he's perfectly content.
He's given very clear signals. And, the way we know is that 8 months later, he did a thing. I just don't know what they're going to ultimately convict him on. But he did a thing. It was, again, the thing was so similar to his first offense. It was witnessed. And I'm familiar enough with the system to be like, look, they're not going to say he did the thing unless he did the thing. And so the thing happened in MYC. It's called Metropolitan Youth Center. At the time, he's still under 18, and he had not been convicted as an adult, so he's kind of in a weird...
Yeah, in a holding facility situation. So this would be the original offense being October 22nd of 2013. The second alleged thing occurring the following summer at the beginning of June on the 2nd, 2014, while he's being held awaiting trial for the murder and rape of Colleen Ritzer. So he's there in a juvenile facility when this occurs.
And he is observed sort of kind of hiding, effectively, sort of stooping down below a divider wall in this facility. And you should not picture like group home. This is like prison light.
There's like segmented rooms, maybe windows in some places with hallways you can see through the windows.
Yeah, there's no privacy. The doors do lock at night. There's a lot of checks. But at the same time, there is more kind of everybody sits in the day room to watch TV, and everybody can sit. There are quiet rooms where they can go. Like, there's a little bit more freedom of movement than you would have in a prison.
You could play cards together, games, and watch TV, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And in fact, if I'm thinking of the right style place, they may either be discouraged or outright not allowed to go into their own rooms during the day. That you're expected to stay out in groups because it's easier to watch a group. Right? And you can't lock children in cages. That's sort of how it's looked at. So he's at this youth facility. He sort of hides behind a dividing wall as he watches a female staff member head to the bathroom. So already, here goes the deja vu. He follows her in and punches her hard enough that her head effectively bounces off the wall. Then starts to both sexually grope at her and starts to choke her. Luckily, another employee, a male employee, heard what was going on. She was able to scream out, and he was able to sort of do the count and knew where his colleague was, and followed her in, was able to subdue Chism, and I believe save this woman's life.
Definitely, because not only was he strangling her with her back against the wall, so he had leverage to use his strength, but there was some talk. I think he was also charged with using not only the wall as a weapon, but he might have had a sharpened pencil as well, because after the assault, she did have a hole in her shirt and scratch marks consistent with having been stuck by a pencil that she didn't have before she went to the bathroom.
Right, exactly. And so this is, again, I don't think with either Ritzer or with this woman that he planned it in the sense of, I am going to go after this woman at that time. But I think that
crime of opportunity.
Exactly, that sort of lurker feeling. He's not a stalker specifically, but he's a lurker, and he's ready to pounce sort of at a moment's notice, and that is more terrifying to me.
And literally with any weapon he can find, even if it's just a pencil.
Yeah. And that's a very prison mentality.
Right. And he wasn't even in prison yet.
Right.
So just imagine what he's going to be like at 54.
Yeah. I am not at all a proponent of the death penalty, and I'm not a proponent of, life without parole under the vast majority of circumstances, because I want to be optimistic. I don't succeed, but I would like to feel optimistic. But in this case, this person is so dark and damaged already, and already doing things that are far beyond his years and clearly planned out. What's he sitting around fantasizing about now?
What's he going to do in adult prison? He's been in adult prison for going on 2 years. It'll be 2 years in January. I know he's in a maximum security prison, but I don't know what his level of segregation is. But it'll be interesting to find out maybe as his second case progresses. He was charged for the attack on the youth services worker. He initially faced a charge of